Alright, this is Old Electronics Fan, and I'm revisiting my Akai turntable. And the reason I'm revisiting this is because I've learned a few things since I did the last one. And I've understood, now that I understand some things better, um, I want to correct some things that, and I also wanted to recheck some things on this, to try to understand what on earth was going on. I'm not sure I'm going to get the answers I'm looking for, but I'm back here looking. So, but before I get into this, I want to show you this. Let's see. So, there's a guy, the old audio guy or the audio guy, I can't remember what his channel is. But he was talking about some things, and I'm a little bit embarrassed that I didn't think of this because he was touching on balanced connections, specifically referenced XLR. And I worked with XLR connections. I worked with sound systems, with a sound system, and I understand how these are designed and why they're designed the way they are. But I didn't think of applying this to this, and we'll get to that. Okay, yeah. Organizing my thoughts. Okay, so here's XLR. The way the connections are designed and the way the cables are designed is you've got two signal wires that run down the center of the cable, and then they wrap it in some protective material, and it gives it the round shape, and then they put a shield around the outside of the wire. This is actually a mesh that goes all the way around the wire, the whole length of the wire, and so you've got two signal wires and this ground. This ground never sees signal. The only place you'll see signals on these two wires. And I learned about XLR a long time ago, and I'm forgetting exactly how this is set up, but because it's a balanced connection, not an unbalanced connection like an RCA connection. I would have to go back and refresh my memory on this, but there's plenty of stuff on XLR and balanced connections. But the bottom line is, this ground, this shield, is absolutely critical in the cable to make this work properly. If you have a cable that has a damaged shield, you will have a hum in it. And I don't care if it's only just a little tiny shortcut in the shield wire, it's going to hum. This shield must be complete through its entire end. But it's incredibly effective the way this is set up, the way it's designed, because you can run these, we've got 50-foot XLR cables that we run, and then we send the signal through, how long is that snake that runs through our conduit? At least 30 foot long. So you've got a signal traveling 80 feet, and it's coming from microphones, which are very low signal. So this works very, very well to keep noise down, because you're able to really amplify the signal coming from the mics quite well without a lot of noise and hum. So now we come down to yeah, okay, I do have to fix this. Alright, I want to do it this way. So, alright, so we've got signal ground, and it's both of these. I'm showing both. There's a reason for this, and then this will be a separate ground. I'll show you where that goes in a minute. Alright, so this is what's called pseudo-balanced. And so this wire that I reference here is this wire. And that's that extra wire that goes and connects to the ground connection on the back of your stereo or amplifier, your phono preamp or whatever it is that you're using. And notice that all of these are ground connections. All three of these are supposed to be tied together. And that's this wire right here feeding all the ground from these two down to the chassis of the stereo. Now, the reason this is pseudo-balanced is because inside here, these are the four wires, right, left, and two grounds. Well, that right there is not a balanced connection. You've got one signal wire and one ground for each channel. That is not this. But this is kind of mimicking this setup here. I'm sorry, this setup here. Because you've got a ground surrounding these wires, just like you have here. And the only thing that makes this, the only problem you run into is that you've only got two wires per connection, not, you have one signal wire for each of the channels. You don't have two. And that's the difference. This is not a balanced connection here. So that's why they say pseudo-balanced. And so this ground here is there to try to keep hum at bay. So this is your tone arm, this is the shell. Oh, and before I forget, I need to correct something I said about this. On the cartridge, there's a little brass piece of flat metal, and it comes down and it's stuck over this pin on this side. I forget which side it is, doesn't matter. I said, well, they only did one side because they were basically going cheap. Well, no, that's not why. If you were to put another one up here for this ground, and remember, these two get grounded at the other end at the stereo or the amp or the preamp, whatever you hook it into. If you have this one, and if this one is tied to this is the shell that goes around the cartridge, and this ground is grounding that metal shell. Again, they're doing everything they can to reduce hum and keep noise at bay. If you put another one of these grounding straps here, and you shorted it at the other end, which you do, these two grounds together, you now have the potential for a ground loop. Ground loops are bad, very bad. They create hum, they create all kinds of nasty distortion. You don't want them. So, you do not want both of these grounded to this shell. You're going to ground the other end. So, you get away with getting one wire grounded, and that gets you where you want to go as far as trying to keep the noise at bay and to try to keep the hum at bay. You don't actually need another ground here because this is already grounded. So, the question that's been asked is, why do turntables need a ground wire like this? Why do they have to go through all that trouble of putting this extra wire on there? And the answer is pretty simple. Modern cartridges don't put out a lot of voltage. Older cartridges could put out as much as 3 volts. These do not. These are sub 1 volt, maybe 250 millivolts. I'm not sure. It's fairly low. So you have to amplify this signal a lot more than you do for this signal coming from, say, your home tape player or CD player or whatever, because they put out, now I'm guessing, so don't quote me, but I'm guessing they're maybe in the 2 volt range, somewhere around there. I was going to look it up and I forgot to do that. but it's a lot more than what this does, especially if this is a magnetic cartridge. They do not put out a lot. And so, if you have noise at the very beginning of this signal chain, it's going to be greatly amplified when it, at the amplifier, because it's going to amplify not just the signal, but all the noise, all the hum, everything that's trying to be picked up by this, basically antenna, if you will. It's going to get greatly amplified and cause all kinds of nastiness. You will not have a clean signal, let's put it that way. So that's the primary reason for doing all that they're doing. The shell is grounded, the tone arm is grounded, the motor board is grounded, and I'll get to that in a moment. In fact, let's go there now. So this was one thing I wanted to correct here. That ground, it has to be one ground going to this shell that the cartridge needle plugs into, or the shell that holds the cartridge. There we go. You do not want two there. It's not a good idea. So let's go over here to this. And we're going to get into this part, and we're going to revisit this. Well, I was pondering where I wanted to go next, and so I've shown you on my chart there what I've learned and what I should have known. I want to go here, and I want to talk about this a little bit, and then we'll dig in deeper into this, because that's still bugging me a little bit, and well, we'll get there. All right, so let's zoom out a little bit and up. All right, motor board, and as I mentioned before in my first video, there are a bunch of coils under here, and I went back and reviewed my video, and I actually measured I picked this screw right here, and I measured from here over to here before I made my fix up there, before I put that little ground wire in there. And I was measuring from the board, this metal plate, to this ground point, actually. I think I was measuring it down here, but that's the same thing, that's the same circuit, the same run. And when I measured, when this was misbehaving, the voltage between here and here was 14 volts. And I checked a bunch of things trying to figure out where that could possibly be coming from. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that these coils that make up the motor, and they're pretty good sized coils. They're about that big around, and there's a bunch of them around here. I'm pretty sure what's happening is these coils, because they're being pulsed by the motor control board, they're pulsing, and so as they're being pulsed and discharged, they're generating voltage spikes that are being picked up by this metal, I believe. 14 volts seems like a lot, but with the motor running, there's a lot of pulses happening all the time. So in any case, so this board is actually getting charged with a voltage which actually gets picked up as noise by the audio cabling here. And I'm not exactly sure what path that's taking. The only thing I really know for sure is that you ground this board to this, and the noise goes away, because the voltage also goes to zero, and that takes care of your noise. So, but let's go back to what I was just talking about. And, well, let's look at this first, because I just mentioned that you don't want... Now, they've grounded this end of this shield here. They have not grounded the other end on here. And there's probably, well, there's probably one reason for that. Because this part moves when the tone arm isn't locked. This piece swivels, and because it moves, if you tried to secure this to this somehow, it wouldn't take too long before these wires would simply break off. And it's not necessary, because all you're really trying to do is prevent noise from the surroundings from getting into this cable. And you've got just a little tiny gap there, very short gap, and apparently their testing has shown them that is acceptable. So, there's that. This, if you measure from here, which is the end of your, this is the shaft that supports your tone arm, this is grounded as well as the entire tone arm. And let's see, oh yeah, let me see, where am I going? Okay. So, this extra ground here is simply just trying to keep noise at bay, trying to prevent, because this little length of wire could make a fairly decent little antenna, and that would be bad. But you've got two wires down here, two black wires, and then you've got these 4 wires which go to the cartridge. And all these wires, all 6 of these wires, go down through here and out to the tone arm. And I tried looking for these little black wires, and I don't know where they're connected, but given that there's a plastic bushing down here, which you can't see, this shaft goes through a plastic bushing, and that plastic bushing isolates this from this. And I'm not entirely sure why they chose to do that, because ultimately this and this and the tone arm and this part, all of this gets tied together ultimately, but they chose to do it that way, and they must have had a reason. They have engineers, I'm not one. So anyway, so I showed you this wire coming in. So here's the wires that go to our turntable, or you know, our stereo. This wire is this wire that goes here, and as I mentioned before, that this is a ground point that is tied to this, and it's tied to the tone arm. So when I repaired this and made all of these connect, let's go back here. So the problem that I was having was that this ground was broken. These two were still shielded. This should have been grounded to this, and it wasn't. There's a bad connection, and it was in that little screw. Once I restored that ground, the noise went away. But let's go back here for a minute. This repair that I did is not the same as the repair I did on my TAC turntable, which was one of my more recent videos I did. On the TAC, I don't remember what the exact setup was, but what they did do, and what is different about this, on this one you've got the wire that's actually part of your RCA cable wire loom,
On this one, they have a little pinhole in the back of the turntable, and that turntable came with a little wire with a metal pin that you would poke through the hole, and it would contact this ground point. So it was a similar idea. Whatever they were grounding through this was separate from this part here. What I did to the TIAC was I took this ground, or these grounds, this one connection, and tied it to one of these, to a ground here. It doesn't matter which one. They both get shorted together at the stereo or preamp ramp. So my turntable that I'm showing you here, I have not done that with this, and I'm going to show you in a little bit why it would make sense either to do what I did to the Akai, or just simply use the ground if your stereo has a ground point designed for phonos on the back. So the question you might be asking is, well, why wouldn't you want to do that? Some stereos aren't entirely happy if you do this. If you tie this and this to this, or this. My Harman Kardon is one of those that didn't entirely like my Akai. Now, the Harman Kardon also, though, in the book they talk about the fact that if you get a hum with it, you should pull the power cord out and rotate it and put it back in, and that should take care of your hum. Now, I thought I tried that with the TIAC turntable. I don't remember. But I do remember that the Harman Kardon wasn't entirely happy with that. So, if you do this, just be aware that possibly your particular stereo might not like that. If it doesn't, just reverse what you've done. And I did experiment. I have a Pioneer amp sitting up on my shelf up there, and it does not have a ground point for phonos. And I've also learned that some of the newer turntables didn't have a separate ground wire. They probably did to those turntables what I did with the Akai, or the TIAC, I mean. So it's possible that in the video on the TIAC, I mentioned that the newer stereos have either a polarized plug or a 3-wire plug, and they were designed in such a way that you theoretically didn't need the ground wire, except that the TIAC didn't like it. It made noise. It was not a happy camper. So that was my fix to make it work. Now, and I could do the same thing here with my Akai. I could tie this all together. All these grounds could be tied together, and it would do the same thing. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you that in a minute, that would work. Okay, so all right, my thoughts went wandering off a bit. All right, so let me go back to this for a minute. He's good, yeah. Let me zoom out a little bit. If you do not use this ground, and you do not tie these together, the signal from your turntable will not be as clean
as if you actually did use the ground. And I tested that, and I'll show you that in a moment, and you'll see. So on the TIAC, I did get a decent result by tying everything together. But here's the bottom line. If you don't use this, and if you don't tie them together, the signal you're getting from your turntable is not going to be as clean. And there are turntables that have been built that do not have this. DJ turntables are one of them. And I believe the explanation for that was, well, the audio quality required from one of those isn't as great, and so they didn't really bother putting a ground wire on there because it would work okay for their purposes. Maybe that's true, I don't know, but I'm going to show you. Let's give me just a minute here, we'll hook up some stuff. Alright. Okay, so we'll get rid of this. I'm going to back out, so what I'm going to do. Alright, so here's this connection here. I'm going to turn on my stereo, give it a minute to come up. There we go. Now, I think you can hear that. Now if I just touch it and move it a little bit, it's not bad. Maybe it's because it's around that. That probably would help. Yeah. No, maybe not. If I move this around, it seems to get better. Alright, so we're getting a nice hum. If I do this, I'm putting my finger there to make the hum a bit worse. All I'm doing is grounding this to this. And now I get some hiss when I crank it up really loud. Trust me, you don't really want this that loud. But when I have this at halfway right now, you don't hear it. I'm just going slightly above halfway. There's our hum. And there it goes. And when I'm at half volume, you don't hear anything. It's just completely quiet. So, there is value in using that ground wire. Depends on how loud you're going to make it. If you're keeping it fairly quiet, which is my tendency because I'm in a small room, 10 by 20, something like that, 12 by 20. I don't really need, I really don't need huge volume down here. I'm not really interested in going deaf, which that stereo could very easily do. My Optimus speakers, reasonable sized towers, are very, very efficient and they're very loud at the volumes that I care to listen to. So, but I want to go back to this for a minute because I'm really bugged by this. So I'm going to take this nut off. Now, what I should have done in the first video, and I didn't, I still don't know why I didn't, I should have taken this apart, although I should have taken the screw out, but I didn't. I have already done that, but here's what I'm going to do. Alright, here's what I'm going to unscrew this. And I looked at this nut. I was trying to see if it was, you can't really see. I don't see any corrosion, the threads look great, everything looks fine. And I know I've had this apart before, I've looked at this. I don't see any corrosion on here. I don't know. Let's take this. This is really baffling. One of the tricks I've learned on this meter is if you don't want it timing out on you every 5 minutes, hold down the select button when you turn it on, and it turns off the auto feature, which I really like. Alright, so put that on ohms. Now the first thing I want to do is just compare. Oops. 5.1. So the coding on here, come on, hey, well, why are you misbehaving? Well, really? Huh. Well, I've not, this is the first time I've tried to do this. Okay. If I get my meter right on one of the points, then I get low ohms. If I'm out on the edges of the washer, then I don't. Now the other thing I want to see though is I'm going to touch this screw. Now I have had the screw out because I wanted to see if it was corroded or not. This is a chrome plated screw, I found out. It's not, I thought it might be stainless, but it's not. It was too shiny, so I was questioning that, but this is definitely a steel screw. It is magnetic. So let's try that. Yeah. So now, you weren't seeing all of the meter, were you? So now this screw, and I know I tested this before, I'm pretty sure I did. Apparently just unscrewing the screw and putting it back in solved the bad connection to here. So, interesting. Very. If I had to guess, because I don't see anything wrong with this little brass nut, it looks pretty clean, no issues there. I think possibly the star washer was my problem, because this is the connection between that nut and this copper pad here on this circuit board. Let's take a small screwdriver and scratch this up a bit. Now, given, well, that doesn't matter. Yeah, so, and what I'm doing here now is something I should have done when I was working on this the first time. And I'm not sure why I didn't do that. Because it wasn't too long after I finished up that video, I started reviewing in my mind what I had done, and that thought ran through my mind, why didn't I dig into this more? And it's possible I was just thinking, well, it's screwing up, I don't want it to screw up again, why don't I just fix it another way and make sure that it's going to work always. So here I am, I'm going to go here, and go here. Yeah. So scrubbing it helped a little bit. Yeah, so that's kind of my conclusion. I think I finally figured out what was going on. I really think something was going on Probably what I should have done was I should have taken a wire brush or something to this and cleaned it up. I have one right here. I guess if I really wanted to make sure that this was working, because at one point I did have this working, and I had to take it apart again because it stopped working properly, and so what I'm going to do is take a little bit of sandpaper, try to clean the sharp edges of the washer to make sure that it works. Because that's the little edges. The little edges are what actually dig into the copper and make the connection. Okay. Now this is just a piece of aluminum, which I guess is okay. But we're going to find out. So I know that I can get down to 0.1 ohms on this if I've got a good connection. So let's find out what. Okay, and the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect this. Take that little repair out. So now let's go. Let's go here and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to touch the end of the screw. 0.2. I guess that's okay. It will work. 0.2 will work. Interesting. So if I touch the aluminum, I'm getting 0.1. Let's go up here. Oh, I don't want that. I should have. Yeah, okay, now it's 0.1. A different spot on the solder and, well, or on the screw, I guess. Depends on where you hit the screw, I guess. Well, alright. So, I think technically I could leave this off. Sanding that little star washer probably helped. I think taking the screw out and putting it back in helped, because the only thing that connects this board to this screw is the threads that is in the board that this screw uses. So if there's anything interfering with the connection between the screw threads and the screw, then you're going to have that problem. That was a big problem though, and I'm kind of leaning toward this star washer as being my culprit. I really am. I think that was my problem child. And I really wish I'd gotten into this. But I think part of me was frustrated because I think I went through some of this. I didn't take the screw out, but I may have taken this nut off, and I'm pretty sure I looked at things over, but I didn't do what I did today, which was check with a meter on the star washer, on the surface of the copper. I don't think I did those things, and that's all me not thinking to do that. But just because I've been bit once means that this is going back on here. If someone else is working on one of these and wants to either try to get the star washer to work better or replace it with a new one, You could try that, and of course scratch the surface of the copper pad here, try to improve things. So now I should have a good connection. 0.2, yeah. Yeah, 0.1. So now I've got an excellent connection between here and here, and of course this was not a problem, but these black bars that go up to the tone arm. So, well, this no longer bugs me. I think I now know what happened. But apparently it's not an uncommon problem, because someone else had one of these and they followed they did my repair and it fixed their turntable as well. So I guess it wouldn't hurt to have both things in place. This way, if this goes south again, I mean, this thing is, oh, I don't know, at least 40 years old. So I'm not expecting this to fail again while I'm around to use it, but it could fail again in the future when I'm not here. So, and I don't always worry about that too much, but when I repair things, I'd like them to stay fixed. Especially for me, when I'm using it, I don't want it to stop working. So I think that wraps this up. I think I now know, and I really do think that that these coils are inducing a voltage into this plate, and that's why this must be grounded, because this plate is just radiating noise and it's getting picked up by whatever. Maybe this is enough of a gap there that it could radiate into that. I don't know. Very bizarre, very strange problem. But I think I've definitely now I'm feeling happier about this, and what I've learned about what I've learned about why that cable was put there. And I think the additional part of that is is that going to be an issue or not? Well, I'm going to just say it, and then somebody can correct me if they think I'm wrong. When you have a stereo that does not have a polarized plug, and again I go back to the Harman Kardon's instructions: if you get a hum, flip the plug around, and that if nothing else is wrong, that should fix it. So the thing is that would that make a difference? I'm still trying to sort that part out, and I'm just not sure why that would make a difference. The only thing that I can think of is that when you have an unpolarized plug-in one way, you could have the hot side going to the chassis, and the neutral or ground would be going to the other side of the ACM. Flip it around, now you've got your neutral line connecting to the chassis, and the hot line is on the other side, and perhaps having the chassis grounded through the electrical system helps deal with hum, and it's probably true. The bottom line for these kinds of problems is you're dealing with very low signal voltages. You cannot have noise at the very beginning of the chain, because by the time it gets to your speakers, that noise is going to be greatly amplified and very objectionable. So all of your grounds have to be good, and if you have a motor board. I haven't seen this problem with turntables that have that are not direct drive. It seems to be the direct drive turntables that have this issue. And I'm pretty sure it's because of the noise generated by the motors that's being picked up by other things in the surrounding that motor. And if you don't have things properly grounded, then it's going to come through your system as lots of noise or hum. So that's my thought. That's what I believe is probably going on. I'm glad I went back to this. I'm still, well, I say baffled. The only reason why I'm not still sure of why this failed is because I did not see any corrosion anywhere. Not on the screw, not on the threads in the board. Now the nut I've had on off a couple times. It's possible that the backside of this little brass nut had become tarnished, and in the process of loosening it and tightening it, that solved the problem. However, I've had this off before and put it back together, and it still failed on me, which is why I did this. If you want to try to fix your turntable without resorting to this, then take all this apart, take the screw out, check from the top, make sure there's no corrosion, check from the bottom, because this little board, take that screw out, take this off, the board lifts out of the way, you can see how it looks on the bottom, and of course when you take the screw out, you can see how it looks on the top, and it's quite possible just unscrewing the screw and screwing it back in will correct. Now before you do that, if you just want to troubleshoot, number one check I would make would be to I would put a clip on a screw somewhere on this board, make sure we've got a ground, it's actually a good ground connection to your metal plate here. I would start by checking here, the screw itself, and see if you've got connection to the board. Try to find out where this is failing, if you can. Now it's possible if you check between this brass nut and the screw that you'll have a connection. But you may find that when you check between this brass nut and this aluminum clip here, you may not have, and that will tell you right away that this has gotten tarnished or corroded, and that's your culprit. If that's not the case, I would go after the star washer and the copper underneath. I did learn that I really do, if I want higher volumes out of this, I really do need that ground wire connected to my turntable. Or you could do what I did and just take and run a ground wire from either here or somewhere else and run it over to one of these grounds. So if you want to do the same thing as I did on the TIAC, just run a ground wire from here over to one of these two grounds, and now you don't really need to plug in the ground wire. Since my stereo has a grounding lug on the back, a grounding screw, I'm probably going to leave it as it is. So I think I'm going to keep this around. Although the TX has got some nice features. Some of the controls are right out front, and some of the controls that you use a lot are right there. So that's kind of convenient. And the fact that it's more fully automatic than this, because it's able to find the size of the record that you've put on there, 45 or 33. That's also a neat feature. So I'm kind of debating, but in either case, if I sell this instead of that, there's nothing wrong with me using the TIAC or the TIAC as I've modified it. It'll work fine on this stereo, no question. I think I've tested it on this and it worked. Well, I have to come up with an addendum to this. And once again, it's a mystery. I have no idea why it's doing what it's doing. I hooked up my ground wire to this. Now I remember checking to see if that ground connection was indeed directly connected to the ground used for the RCA connectors, and as I recall, it was. But listen to this. That's a nice hum. So let's see. Come on, you. So much fun. So where are you? Probably need more room for stuff, so I don't have to stack so many things on top of each other. Okay. No hum. This sounds like it did when I was testing, because I had a cord. I had this cable, these two connections connected to the phono input on the stereo, and you saw me tapping that cord against this, and it was quiet when I did that, and not quiet when I didn't. But now that this is actually sitting on the stereo, I don't know. And I did not make the modification that I made on the TAC. This is unmodified. I think I can probably check that. Just trying to think how I could change, how I could evaluate that. All right, let's do that. This is so much fun. The way I can check that, I know I didn't intentionally do that. The way I can check this is by using my meter. What is? All right. Okay, now, we know that these two probably are not connected together. They shouldn't be. And they are not. Okay? So, I checked from here to here, and that is correct. And in fact, I was talking about ground loops earlier. You do not want to short together the grounds for your RCA connections in your turntable. Unless the manufacturer has already done that, don't do it, because then you could wind up with a ground loop and nasty hum. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if somehow, that's 76 ohms, let's try this side. .4 ohms. Well, I'm not sure why it's that low. No idea. That's just really fun. I really don't want to take this apart all over again. Well, that could explain why I'm getting hum. I mean, normally I wouldn't expect. Depends. And it's possible, if with this one being so low in ohms that between here and there, it's possible this could now be acting like a ground loop. But I didn't change anything after I said I was going to put it back together. Yeah, I can't think of any way that would short out. I don't know. So, and I know I've had this connected before. I did have this connected at one point. So, what gives? I don't like this. I gotta check on it. Well, this is fun. I spent a fair amount of time off camera poking around. I'm not sure what is going on here exactly, or why this is going on, but this is the ground that goes to the back of the stereo. This is the ground to one of the RCA jacks. If I go over here, nothing. If I go over here, nothing until I do that. If I, it was down as low as 30 some odd ohms at one point. 35, 30, 25. Alright, if I play with it, it goes away. That leads me to believe that I have a flaky cartridge. So, let's see here. Can I do this? No. Alright. Let's see. So, go there. Yeah, I got a hum. Okay, well, this is fun. This is a Stanton cartridge. It would appear this cartridge has issues. The cartridge has issues. Well now. Yeah. Down there. So, yeah. I'm tempted to slide the shell off. I think I have a service manual that tells me how to realign this, but I see that this is right in the middle of these, so well, I have more than one turntable, so if this one breaks, I have others I can use, but I want to know what's going on. So, so much fun. Well, you can't really see what I'm doing. Basically, I'm just pulling the wiring off from the cartridge so I can remove it from the head shell. Yeah, it's trying to do that. It's trying to remove itself from the head shell. Great. I'm not sure that this was assembled correctly by whoever assembled it before. I'll show you why I think that in a minute. I'll find out what's going on in a minute, I think. Yeah. All right. When they assembled this, they I'm going to take this one out because I'm going to have to anyway. Whoever assembled this didn't do it right. Come on. And when I spotted it, I said, oh, that's not nice. So what they did was they took this piece and just set it on top and proceeded to try to screw it in. But because it shoves the hole out further, the screw had to go in on an angle, and it wasn't exactly great. So here goes nothing, I guess. Uh-oh. Well, all right. Just trying to pay attention to how this went together. When I pulled the cover off, this piece dropped out. I think that's how it goes. We'll find out. All right. Well, I took a magnifying glass and looked in there, and it's unclear exactly what they're doing. So, but on either side up top are these two coils. They're riding against, there's a plate that runs down the middle between them, and there's a plate on this side, and there's a plate on the other side identical to it. And there's nothing that tells me why it's misbehaving. And I slide that in there. It's just supposed to slide in there and park. Now the only thing I can think of is that when I was trying to pull these off once before, this started coming out and I just pushed it back in. So the question is, did this get misplaced? It doesn't look like it could have. Well, it looks like this is where that's supposed to go. I don't see any other way it can go. So well, I'm not sure that told me anything, but something is definitely not right. And I'm going to check this out further with my Beckman meter because it's faster and not as touchy. There's a reason why I keep that old meter around. I'm going to be really unhappy if it dies on me someday. So, now this cartridge seems to still be functioning, but let me show you how they have this identified. So there's your left and right, and they label them blue or red and white. And then down at the bottom it says G for ground, and it's got R over here, which is obviously crossways to that, and then L and L. So that's how they want you to plug it in. They actually give you the color code. Green goes over here and blue goes over there. So they did a nice job of showing you what went where. Now the question is, okay, here's where I'm going to have a problem, because I don't have, with this out of the shell, whoops, can I, not sure. Now, let me back up just a minute. Because this was not mounted properly in the head shell, I don't know if that plays a part. Maybe this isn't supposed to be grounded to the shell. It sure doesn't look like it's supposed to be, because these are plastic and this shouldn't be touching that. That would be interesting. Huh. Yeah, so let me back up just a minute so I can explain what I am thinking. Now that everything's grounded properly in the turntable, I guess it doesn't matter because this one was always grounded. This ground goes to this connection on the shell, or this collar on the shell. So this piece here is grounded along with the tone arm, which means that it's connected here. And I can show that by sure, why not? It's grounded. I don't know why it's dancing around, but it is. But that is, so this is grounded to the shell, or to the tone arm. And I suspect that, bear with me as I try to figure things out here. Let's check and see. Yep. You know, I've got, this is not making a good ground here. What if I do that? Well, let's go here. So what I want to do is I want to see if this head shell is really grounded. Yep. It's close enough for me. So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this back together correctly so that, because you can see the paint has actually been broken right here. And I'm suspecting that that has allowed it to ground itself. Yeah, I think that's what was going on. So let's try this. Why not? I may learn something. And let's take this off so I don't damage it. I'm slowly but surely learning the lessons of caution. Oh, where did you go? Well, that was nice. My belt buckle caught it. All right. Oh, go in. Oops, gotta go that way. So, yeah, so not having this mounted properly, well, where are you? Right there, okay. not having this mounted properly was contributing to the problem of the hum, apparently. Now you might be wondering why this would be so. I believe the reason for that is we're dealing with, I had one of these on here once. The reason is that I believe we're dealing with a ground loop. When, yes, there we go. Kind of. There. The way this is set up is, let me go back to this. This goes up to the shell and then ends right here. So this ground is connected on one end only. However, this cartridge, because it has this little ground here, this little plate, this cartridge can be grounded. Now, I'm thinking that what's happening is maybe this is causing issues, and because this was actually making a ground connection to the shell, now you've got, you don't have an open-ended ground like you want. Remember that they frequently will ground one end of a shield on purpose to avoid ground loops and to avoid hum. But if this shell is then being grounded to this, now you've got this looping back out and going out. So now you've got two grounds traveling in parallel, or traveling in a loop fashion. And when you connect this connection to the ground on your stereo chassis, now you've made the complete loop. So the ground goes to the chassis of the stereo. These two are also grounded to the chassis of the stereo. So this is connected to this, which just comes back up here and is connected to this complete loop. I believe that's what's happening. So, my hope is, oh, stop it. Thankfully this is fairly sturdy, but I really don't like throwing it on the floor. Not recommended. Alright, so, and I'm thinking there was a very good reason why they had these plastic pieces here, so that they could avoid that very thing. Battery live to fight another day. Let's see. So now, all right. So, yeah. Yeah, that's going to be much nicer too. So now when you go to put the screws in, they're going to go straight in, and that before what they were doing was they had them sitting in here, and just to ensure that they were going to ground something, these screws had actually marred the side of this because the screw was in on an angle, and one of these was just barely, don't do that, just barely hanging on. It was practically through, I don't know how they did that, it was practically through the shell. But anyway, so let's see what we can do with this. That's gooder. This is going to be much nicer than it was. Okay. Well, now I'm kind of glad that I took this apart to see if I could figure out what was going on. I was a little frustrated. Yeah. I was a little frustrated, I won't deny it, because this would be the second time that I had thought that I got this repaired, only to find out that maybe not. Alright. And, well, we'll tighten this one down and work on the other one, I guess. Okay, it's got to come forward a little bit, I think. So it does anyway. Right about there. So I guess we're going to have to do it step by step here. Walk one side where I want it, lock it down, get the other side where I want it, except that it's walking forward on me. Don't do that. Okay. So, it's pretty close. I'll probably have to follow the alignment instructions, but I think this is close enough to start with. Not too far off. So there it is. That's how it's supposed to be. And you'll notice that the nothing touches this but the plastic. Yeah, that looks good. Alright, so I am going to just assemble this. Oh, actually I got to put the wires back on first, or I'd have really big problems, wouldn't I? Okay. I really did not expect to run into all of this stuff. I'm really hopeful that this is it. This is the last little headache I'm going to have with this. Alright. So yeah, I'm fairly confident that the issue here is that this was being grounded to this and is not supposed to. And I kept as I was troubleshooting and checking the resistance across from here to here and from here to here, and so it was basically between here and here I was checking, because from here to here and here to here it didn't seem to matter on either of these. But this one was another story. So now, if I'm right, this should solve my problem. Very good. Okay. I will go to this one. Yes, because I like it better. For some things. This Beckman has been a meter of mine for a long, long time. And I just keep discovering why I like it more. Okay. So, well, I guess darn. Alright, let's slide this up here. So I've connected my negative lead to the ground wire. And now, I don't have anything. Oh yeah, so I kept taking the shell in and out of here and measuring, and I kept finding it and kept seeing, well, Yeah, that seems to be where the problem is, but where is it? And there's little spring pins up here, up inside here. I thought, well, maybe one of those were having problems, so I put my meter on this and poked each pin, and nothing went wrong whenever I did that, so I said, well, somewhere else. So, alright, now, okay, so now I'm here. I don't think either one of these should, and the one that I'm connected, or I'm testing from, is the one that was giving me problems. Alright. Okay, so nothing, nothing, and nothing. Okay, well that was interesting. I never spotted that problem before because I didn't look very closely at the cartridge before. But when I started discovering that the cartridge seemed to be the source of my problem, then I thought, that requires further inspection. So, alright, so the power's connected. I'm going to hook this up again. Alright, and I don't really need to have this on, I don't believe. Okay, so now I do have a hum. What happens if I ground it? Yep. Alright, you heard it. Now this is a different stereo, but yep. So, if I were playing this through that stereo, actually let me go back up here. So I've got this up to about right there, so it starts here, so it's not that much. So you've got that hum. I do that, and then I can crank it way up, and all I get is minor hiss. So, interesting. However, I want to now, I want to now hook that. I did that last time. It was really good. I think what I'm going to do is, actually I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to just set the bass under this and set it over there on my other stereo, because I want to be sure that all is well. I'm pretty sure that this was ultimately the problem. And what's interesting is that the this little needle, if you wiggled it one way or the other, it would make it hum or not hum. So, makes me wonder, well, I know what the other problem, I know the other problem was real. I checked it out, I found out, I did discover that there was voltage where it shouldn't be, and the minute I shorted across from the motor board to the ground, the noise would go away. So I'm confident in that. So, okay. Now I'm going to be right back. All right. Well, the ground wire is not connected. Bad, very bad. I take it, and I'm just going to ground it to the outside shell of one of the RCA jacks, because they're grounded to the chassis anyway. So, because I have to take this off and put it back together. That's it. So that works. Before I put this all back together, I'm just going to, I'll put a record on here and test it and make sure that there isn't anything weird going on. But since this works on this the same way as it does on that one, I think it'll be an accurate test. But that was really interesting. That was the last thing I thought I was going to find out. Interesting. Well, I'm glad I didn't just shrug it off and say, oh well, I guess I don't need to ground it. Because if I had done that, the hum would have come back. And if I had touched this or done something with it, I'm not exactly sure why that's doing that, but that would have been a problem down the road, I'm pretty sure of it. So I'm glad I took the time to troubleshoot this further. But I think that's it. I'm going to wrap up this part of this here, and unless I discover something else fun, that's it for this.